The beatings will continue until morale improves. So this is an MS361 I'm going to try to rebuild for under $100. I've got all the Amazon parts back here. Cylinder, piston, and the plastics and stuff. And I'll see if it gets running. I got this saw for free many years ago. So it's got a broken fuel line and it's quite low on compression. Doesn't take much to pull it over. An easy way to tell if your saw needs work, if you put your finger over the hole and pull it over, you can feel that it's not pushing a lot of air out. When it's good, it'll blow your finger right off. Sorry if the rain noise is bad. .100 psi after 6 pulls. It's not that bad, but let's rebuild it anyways. Okay, if you're doing it yourself, the hardest part so far has been getting the exhaust off. I had to put a screwdriver in here and like pry it real hard, and anyways, it's finally off. And you can see all the scoring on the piston in there, so it's due for a rebuild. Okay, this little ring sits in the way of the carburetor. Boot comes free. Okay, I got all the stuff around it loose. Hopefully now it just pulls out of here. I'm just fighting a little bit with this carb boot. It's stuck. It's supposed to go through this hole. And there we go. It actually feels like it's in really good shape. There's some crud that fell down there. I'll get out here though. Well, that's gone. And then in here there's a bearing. Just want to not drop it down in the bottom. Sorry you can't see that at all. So the only part of this process that is actually really important is setting the ring gap. So we've got two rings here. They appear to be identical. So we're just going to set one in the hole in the bore of the cylinder. We're going to tap it down straight with the piston, just gently. It doesn't need to be super precise, but you want it down there a little bit, just by feel, is more than enough. So, again, sorry if the rain noise is loud. A good rule of thumb is to take the inside bore diameter, which is 1.9 inches on this device. It likes metric better. Anyways, 1.9 inches. 1.9 inches times 0.004 thousandths. So we want 0.008 thousandths gap. So here's our feeler gauge. It's got 0.008 on it. And we're just going to come in here and measure the gap. And this one is pretty good, actually. Good. So that's ring number 1. Ring number 2. Now this, you could be a little bit more sanitary than I'm being if you're doing this for yourself. See, that ring number 2 is tighter. The 008 still fits, so we don't need to shave it down, but that one we're going to want on top of the piston. So the reason you want to set your end gap, as the piston ring sits in here, when it heats up, it'll run from here, it'll heat up and this gap will close. And if the gap's too tight, it'll touch, and that causes major problems. So you just want to make sure that your new cylinder and your new piston and your new rings aren't all too tight together. And if they are, you take some sandpaper and just file this ring gap down, literally just in between them. Just gently file it down until your ring gap fits with whatever spec you want. Again, you want 0.004 thousandths of an inch for every inch of piston. So mine was 1.9. I times that by 0.004. That gave me 8 thousandths, or 2 millimeters is a good ring gap for this engine. So there's that for you. And I'm going to put the tighter piston ring on top for better compression. This bottom one will act more like an oiling ring. So there's a tiny ridge on the end of the ring gap there. You just want to line that up with the little tab in the piston. And then you're just going to run this ring around by hand. Ring around the rosy. And when it's happy, it'll click into place. And that's number 1. And then we're going to put the tighter one on top. So again, find the dowel in the piston and just make sure you line up the ring the right way, slide it on here, and it's that simple. You don't have to overthink it. Okay, so to go back together, we have our piston with the rings assembled in the correct fashion with the tighter ring on top. We have a new base gasket. We have a new cylinder. We're going to put a little bit of oil in the cylinder, on the piston, and the base gasket with the cylinder and the piston and the new bearing, which will be oiled as well, are going to go in the saw. And then the exhaust is going to get bolted on, and I'm going to replace the fuel line, and this should run. So enjoy the time lapse of that. I just want to poke in through the time lapse and mention the arrow on the piston always goes towards the exhaust. The arrow on the piston indicates airflow. Some people just want to say it points forward, but it always points towards the exhaust. That's universal no matter what industry you're in. That's why you're getting a time lapse. Because it's friggin' loud. So the beatings will continue until morale improves. This gasket goes underneath that cylinder. I need to pull it back off now to install this gasket. So that's awesome. Okay, I've got everything back together. I'm just gonna dump some fuel in it here. I put a new fuel line on it, attach the carburetor, all that fun jazz. Tank mostly full of fuel, and we'll see what she does. Okay, I checked for spark. It has spark. Let's choke on. Oh wow, that's way better. So it's running fine, but I'm just gonna pull these little restrictors off. And then we can actually tune this thing properly. Okay, so the needle on the left is the high, so we want 1.5. So there's half, 1, and a bit. Okay, half, 1.5. Same as the low speed, half, 1, half, 2, half, and a, wow, okay, so half, 1.5. Now what we're gonna do is idle this thing for a very long time until it gets really hot, then shut it off, let it cool, and we're gonna do that 2 to 3 times, and then we're gonna try it out, and then beat on it like it's stolen for a while. And doing that heat soaks the engine the way you want it, and it'll break it in nicely. So let's let it idle. Okay, heat cycle round 2. It's pretty cold. It might just start. And we'll let that run until it's hot again, and then let it cool down again. We're gonna do this 2 or 3 times, maybe 4. Okay, I'll end this video here. That's how to rebuild a chainsaw for under $100. While using Amazon parts. This runs really well. Anyways, that's the quick and dirty of it. Hope you enjoyed. So if you like what you saw, hit that subscribe button. Really helps out the channel. Doesn't cost you guys a thing. It's the fastest way to rebuild a chainsaw. So like I said, the end gaps and the rings are important. And that's kind of it when you're using cheap Chinese Amazon parts. Guys, have a good one. Take care. This is the chainsaw I rebuilt. Not the other day, but last week. how hot the sun is. You can see all the stuff in here on the trailer steaming. The deck boards especially.